I've been comparing the Essential phone and pretty much everything a lot recently, and for good reason, because a lot of people don't tend to actually compare the Essential phone to its main rivals. Anyway guys, my name's Ryan Thomas with Tech, and today we're going to be comparing it to the Galaxy S8 Plus in 2018 and beyond. Let's see how they've aged. So to decide which one of these pocket monsters deserves a spot in your pocket, I'm going to be going through a bunch of different reasons why I think the S8 Plus is better than the Essential phone, and vice versa. To start off with, let's talk about the design, the build, the battery, and the overall fit and finish. So to start off with, these are made of similar kind of materials. We've got titanium and polished ceramic on the Essential phone versus glass and aluminium on the S8 Plus. And the materials themselves feel very similar, but the way they're constructed and all put together into a final package is very different. With the S8 Plus, you've got a lot of smooth curves, you've got different edges and everything's very curved, and the overall aesthetic is very rounded. I think that's probably a theme you'll see a lot in today's video. Whereas the Essential phone takes a more squared off approach. Now you get flat sides, a flat back, and there are pretty much no protrusions, no camera bump, no fingerprint scanner bump, anything like that. And that's something a lot of people will like and a lot of people will hate. I personally really like it. As I said, the feel in the hand is quite similar in terms of the materials. You know, when you wake up in the morning, they're both going to feel cold to the touch. Very premium feeling phones. I prefer the feel of the Essential phone, but a lot of people do prefer the S8 Plus because they like that tapered design. I really like the way these things feel in the hand. They feel very strong and sturdy. However, the Essential phone doesn't have any kind of IP rating or anything like that, whereas the S8 Plus has IP68 water and dust resistance. So yes, the Essential phone might be quite reliable and quite durable, but you don't have that peace of mind that it's going to survive a splash in the pool or anything like that. For the displays, both go different routes in terms of the display technology and the aspect ratio, but very similar resolutions. So on the Essential phone, we've got a slightly narrower wide QHD display, which features an IPS panel. Now it's 5.7 inches, so it's really not that big. And with those tiny bezels and that tiny notch, it's packed into a tiny form factor that feels smaller than the average 5.5 inch screen phone, a lot smaller in fact, even though you get the bigger display. Now with the S8 Plus, of course you get a much larger display, 6.2 inches. However, it does feel bigger because it's thicker and it's got larger bezels top and bottom. The side bezels are actually thinner, and I think that translates to a nicer aesthetic. I really like the symmetrical design with the chin and the forehead versus the Essentials, which, don't get me wrong, has some tiny bezels, but it's not symmetrical top and bottom, which is kind of annoying. Talking about that S8 Plus for a minute, of course that display is Super AMOLED. It's going to give you beautiful inky blacks. It's going to be a lot punchier than the Essential phone, which I found to be actually quite dull, but both are going to be pretty much equal in terms of sharpness and overall longevity of, wow, this is a quality display. I think both of these are great. However, the S8 Plus does feature, in my opinion, a better display. Both are going to be difficult to keep in decent condition due to those shiny backs and the premium build materials used here. I think it's going to be a case or a skin thing, which a lot of people are going to hate because, of course, these are very beautiful phones. You kind of want to show them off, so, I mean, it's kind of awkward, but at the same time, you really don't want to bust up a beautiful glass back or ceramic back phone, and especially the Essential phone because there are pretty much no replacement parts on the market. The battery is quite a lot smaller on the Essential phone at 3040 mAh versus 3500 on the S8 Plus. Now I think the battery life is roughly the same here because of course, yes, you do get a smaller battery on the Essential phone. You also get a smaller display, and the overall background tasks and memory management and battery management in stock Android, which we'll get onto in a little minute, is actually a lot better than Samsung's battery saving utilities built into its skin on Android as well, even though it has a larger battery. So maybe if I did have to sway one way, the S8 Plus gets a slight edge here, and of course being a Samsung phone it does, but in everyday usage it's really going to depend on what you do on your phone. I didn't see a huge difference between these two. Maybe it's because the Essential phone is slightly newer. Both feature really fast charging. However, of course, the S8 Plus features wireless charging as well, which the Essential phone just doesn't have. For cameras, these are actually pretty impressive. The Essential phone has a really good baseline, a really good platform for a decent camera. It has two 13 megapixel sensors. One is a monochrome sensor and one is a standard sensor. There aren't any difference in focal length, and in my opinion, that second camera isn't really meant to be there. I mean, it's kind of pointless in my opinion. The portrait mode is nice and it actually works quite well. It produces some photos that you think, wow, that was taken on a DSLR. And there are some really nice looking images and videos to come out of it. However, you don't get optical image stabilization, and whilst you can get that 360-degree camera add-on, there aren't many lens cases for this thing if you want to put your own lenses on it. The camera app itself is pretty atrocious. I don't like it at all, and I much prefer something like Samsung's camera app, which allows for more pro modes, more setting changes, and even in auto mode has lightning fast autofocus. The overall aesthetic and usage of the Samsung camera app, in my opinion, is one of the best in the entire market, but it's definitely a lot better than the Essential phone. However, I do recommend you pick up the Google HDR Plus camera app for the Essential phone, because the images you can produce with that thing, or that thing can produce, are a lot better than with the stock camera app. You don't get dual cameras on the S8 Plus, however, in my opinion, it's just not needed. The single camera on there works just fine, and it does have optical image stabilization and faster glass, so low light is actually a lot better on the 12 megapixel sensor. Both can shoot UHD 30 FPS video, which is great, of course not as good as the S9 and stuff that can shoot 960 FPS. However, for slow motion, you do get 240 FPS at 720p on the S8 Plus versus 120 FPS at 720p on the Essential phone. Now, this isn't down to the system on a chip, but rather down to the Essential's kind of software put into there. I don't necessarily think that the Essential phone has a bad camera, but it definitely isn't as easy and ready out of the box as something like the S8 Plus is, because I really believe that you need that Google HDR Plus camera app on the Essential phone for it to work just pristinely. So both cameras are great, however the front cameras are slightly different. We've got 8 megapixel sensors on both. However, you get much larger, much wider glass on the S8 Plus versus the Essential phone. However, one thing that the Essential phone can do is shoot UHD front-facing video, which is something that pretty much no other phone can do. So awesome on Essential. I would still take the S8 Plus because I prefer that wider angle selfie shooter, and I don't take a lot of selfie video. And the overall setup, I prefer the S8 Plus just because it's more ready out of the box. However, of course, the Essential phone is a good starter. In terms of hardware, both are running similar system on chips. In the US, both have got 835s. However, here in the UK, the S8 Plus is rocking an Exynos 8895. What this translates to is two really fast system on chips with both 4GB of RAM, or you can go to 6GB of RAM on the S8 Plus if you choose like the higher end model. And you're going to get really solid specifications here. You've got 8.0 Oreo on the S8 Plus, which isn't quite the latest, and 8.1 Oreo on the Essential phone, which is nicer. However, both are going to have fairly flaky features in their software upgrades. Samsung doesn't tend to push updates until very late, and Essential, well, that company's, I'm not sure if that's even going to exist next year, so that's going to be difficult. But overall, I feel like the software is different. It's not just the version, but the way you use your phone. Samsung has a very blocky, very, let's say, bloated version of Android, which isn't amazing, and not a lot of people are going to like that. However, there are some great first-party options in terms of Samsung software versus Essential, which goes for a very bland offering. However, the one app that's ironically third-party that comes pre-installed and is the worst app in the world is the camera app, so I'm not sure about that. But the overall look of Essential phone, it's like if you took a Pixel and made it pure 2018. You know, you got rid of all the bezels, and of course it doesn't have a greater camera, but the overall aesthetic is kind of like that. It's stock, and you don't really have a lot of motivation to change it because it just looks so clean. Some people will go put their own software on there and modify it, but I just like the way stock Android looks. So in terms of performance, both are going to run games pretty much no problem. They're not going to run stuff like Fortnite or PUBG, whatever it is, at really high settings. However, they both are going to run the majority of modern games, and applications like social networking, absolutely a breeze with these things. These things are overkill for that kind of software usage. In terms of the features, I think that the S8 Plus wins out over the Essential phone here. Okay, it doesn't have those contacts, so you can't connect it to a dock, although Samsung DeX is pretty cool. And you don't get the 360 camera add-on. However, you do get IP68 water and dust resistance, microSD expansion, a heart rate monitor, a better display IMO, and kind of a longer lasting service going into the future. You show up into a shop with an Essential phone, and they're going to point you in the direction of the door and tell you, no, we are not replacing that under warranty. We can't fix any of that under warranty. Whereas with the S8 Plus, you probably will get service. You can get a replacement if the glass back breaks and stuff like that, which you just probably won't get with the Essential phone. And the problem with the Essential phone is that it's so let's see, that it's kind of difficult to recommend to someone who may use the warranty service. I don't use warranties personally, but people who do, and the majority of people that do, will like that about Samsung, because you've got that peace of mind that it's not going to break, and if it does break, then you can get it replaced really easily and probably for a low cost. So overall, it's not looking great for the Essential phone, but in my opinion, it's a very underrated phone. It's got a unique aesthetic to it. It works well as long as you update it to the latest software. Before that, it's very buggy. And the overall usability of the Essential phone is the one that I think is really accessible. Of course, it is difficult to get in certain markets, but you get a smaller phone even though it's got a larger display. You get a decent sized battery for the size of the phone. And okay, you don't get a headphone jack, But realistically, who is expecting one in 2018 and 2019? I would personally still take the S8 Plus just due to that display and camera orientation. I just prefer that. Anyway, that's it from me. I recommend both of these phones. They're both around the same price, so I recommend you go and pick them up. Now they're about half the price of a standard flagship. I invite you to like, dislike, comment, subscribe to never miss a video like this one. I want to thank my Patreon so much. Thank you so much for supporting me over on there. And also I recommend you follow me on social media for more behind the scenes and things of that nature. Also a lot of polls and asking you guys what you want to see. And that's pretty much it. I'll see you in the next one, guys. My name's been Ryan Thomas from Failtech. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.